this. We're not going to look at Apple. If we want to see that, we can just check out the last one. I don't think anything sufficiently changed really in either direction for the market really whatsoever. So you can just go and check that one out just to see what I'm looking for tomorrow. So this is just going to be about Bitcoin. And so let's just kind of talk about, I guess, a little bit of what I said in the last one and where I left off. So the idea was that we'll start trending down when the initial thing is, okay, so if we expected to go up for the weekend, we wanted to see it end somewhere around 19.7 or like 19.7, I guess 20 or slightly above, and then our 19.7 and under, we would expect to trend down. So it got pushed down since then. Obviously, we switched over and we've just been trending down since then. So more or less, the week can easily be defined as we didn't really get pushed down, but we didn't really get pushed up, but we still respected the ranges more or less. So just kind of taking a look, and when we did come down, we get our time frame switch over here at 6 o'clock. We do shoot down pretty far on this one, so it's all in my. I don't want to go too much into it, but a lot of times I'm careful on these. It's not so much we start above, we start under. Another common theme, what I'll say with this, people do remember, is that I'll very often say, especially when people come and ask about stuff, is I'm very concerned if there's a wick and then like a start over right here, because we have this whole wick to kind of, possibly push us back in the other direction. So even with the same thing, this is kind of like in reverse. We have this wick here. So, it's one of those things for me, it's a be careful. It's not exactly the same as when we see something like this. It's fairly straightforward. We don't have really much data for anything. I'm just going to keep it simple. The candle that ended under, and went to the one that started under, had a pretty big extension, which kind of makes this one a little less likely to do what we're looking for, whether this is to the downside, to the upside also in the similar cases. So I guess that's the easiest way to put it. Anyway, but we do come down here, and it's pretty straightforward. We don't end under, boom, boom. Okay, we end under. So we push down, come all the way back up, boom, a little bit of a scam wick. But really the goal here, if we remember, is that we want to try to, or not the goal, but the goal for bears here to make this look horrible, there we go, is to have it start under the week. We've had it under here. Pushing back under makes this look pretty sketchy also as well. But this is the goal by the end of the week. Not this week, but the end of the week we were just on, is to have it start under here. Great base point. Easy to push us all the way down. And also, if we remember what I was saying, and I don't have to have a line, we can see it now, is the day. There we go. That the day is now under here also as well. So we do need to fail some of these other ones. I could show the 2 and the 4 in a second, and that'll kind of give us an idea of what to look for. But overall, the way I look at it like this is just to kind of explain it. I'm not surprised that there's bullishness right now until the market comes out, depending on what it does. The dollar itself seems fairly weak, and I still do think that it is going to want to trend down. It's been a little weird with everything kind of going on right now. I don't want to get too much into it. I don't want to make this too crazy. But the point is, we do come down. This looks like a pretty decent bounce point. Because we didn't come down here already, bears couldn't trap it down here. And because they can't trap it down here, even if it comes down here in the beginning of the week, unless the market is horrible, and we'll see more on that tomorrow, where we kind of stand with all of that. Just looking at what we generally look at, if we come down here tomorrow, the day after, I think just based off what Bitcoin does, it's more likely to bounce unless it's ripped through by the market, because the general, I'm sorry, I keep doing this. It's just, I have to figure out like a name for this or something like specific. But the thing is that we want it to be around here, right? Right when the week starts. We want it to be right under resistance. We don't want, like I said before, something to push it all the way down, because if we do this, and let's say it's Wednesday or Thursday, and then the market kind of gets bullish and this manages to push up, there's a pretty high chance that it won't be nearly as bearish the next week we started here. Or if we start a week up here, we have this, which is pretty much now an extension that'll really push us the heck up. So if we look at it kind of like as a fine balancing act between the two, as a bear, we want it to just come down here, do whatever you're going to do, but just slightly start down here. Like, we don't want all this crazy motion going on. We don't want all this extra selling. The goal is to just have it end or start end, but like, you know what I mean, specifically start down here. So just from that perspective, I do like this. And let me just go and show a little bit more, and this will kind of make a little bit more sense here. So, okay, like I said, we came under here, bounce, bounce. We're waiting for it to start under again. Finally starts under, starts pushing down, comes up. We can see the rejections, and this is the week. So the big bearishness of the week really isn't here anymore, but the bullishness isn't specifically here either. Now, to put a little bit more detail on this spot is let's look at the 2-hour. Well, now we see where this 2-hour is. So this kind of makes a lot more sense when we look at it from this perspective. Now, is it ugly? Yes. But if I'm shorting this, I'm not entering until we see a 2-hour start under here. So you see how this just isn't inherently more bullish than bearish, just because we could come all the way back up. So we could have like 4%, or it could continue up if the market has some sort of reversal, or the Fed changes their mind or whatnot, or some crazy thing kind of comes out because a lot of central banks are trying to attack the dollar. Any position that's taken here, this is a 1% loss. So this isn't that big. The risk versus reward to this spot is just inherently high. So I'm not that surprised. And we also get sold almost all the way down here again. Now that we did hit this, it makes sense that we don't necessarily need to hit it on this next one. So any position taken here or any here, you have a pretty decent exit spot with a 0.5%, or like 0.6% loss, which is really great. Now let's look at the 4-hour. Well, there you go. We have the 4-hour here also as well. We have a convergence of the 4, or the 2s really close, and the 375 and the 4 as well. So if I want to short this, I'm going to want to see a 4 start under here. I'm going to treat this as the range, and then I'm going to want to see another 4-hour start under here, and then I'm going to treat this as the range. So you see there's these huge targets really open up if we can push down and start under these areas. Um, but we just haven't. We just haven't started under these areas. That's kind of weird that that was my chat from the stream over here on the right. I just did like a quick stream. I ended the stream a while ago, so I was just kind of surprised to see it up. But it bugs out my stuff. That's why I realized it was up. Um, but anyway, so if we're looking to long or short, or if we're looking for like risk to reward, we can see that this is, I don't like it. I don't think it's an amazing spot, but our goal is down here on the week. It's not going to start down there. So, and another thing about that is, if what we're looking for is at the week, we can expect that we might see a whole bunch of sellers try to push it to hit it to that target. That's the only reason I streamed, because I thought it would be interesting, because, you know, because if it just does just push through these things, I could definitely see it. Now it's a lot, because it's going to have to push through all this to get to here, but you never know. So now there's another 6 days, 4 or 5 days. I think this has a chance to do something, especially if the market doesn't act super negatively, which I think the market was also oversold on Friday. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with that too. And to just bring it back to that, if you're interested, check out the idea. I talked about some things that I wanted to see. And just like if you're interested, you know, like Apple's today's movements yesterday, what we may see. So this is, and then I kind of go in there at the end and what I want to see. So depending where we start in Apple, this could just try to shoot back up. So, you know, I kind of explain it that way. For me, all this stuff just kind of makes sense. But for anyone that's seeing it for the first time or whatever, I just want to explain a little bit more to it. Not so much like, oh, line here this strong, or I want to explain like the thought process of why. And when we look at these time frames, and the closer we get to these time frames ending, um, around like 30 to 40% remaining, you want to start, generally like big money starts applying more pressure to try to make things hit, right? And then once you see that these things can hit, you're usually going to see them flip. That's the way I look at it a lot of times, because you want to use your capital smart. If you want to see something slightly end under here, you're not going to push it down at the beginning of the week unless it gets forced down by the market or something else, because then you need it to stay down here. Otherwise, it's going to be an extension or an overselling, and it's going to come back up and have a lot of strength moving upwards, which makes zero sense when you're a bear on a longer term and you're trying to add to a position and whatnot. You don't want it ping-ponging. You want it to generally be moving nicely in one direction, with good buying and good selling, not bad buying. So that kind of that. Long story short, I guess it's just bullish. Or at the end of the day, we need to see it. For me, like, this is straightforward. I'd look for a 2-hour start under here, and this is also going to coincide with the 4-hour start. Well, technically it's not, but it's important to know which, like every 2 is a 4, right? So that's also kind of something there. So we could have a 2 here, and that could push us under, and we could do something here. So if we did see a 2, one thing I would say, if we did see a 2-hour start under here, but not a 4, let's say at 10, like right now, this was for me, this is 8, so this is 2000 or whatever. Let's say at like 2200, we start the next 2-hour down here. It's possible that we push all the way here and then bounce. So now if we didn't start the 4-hour under here, and we did, I imagine we'll push down. So the question at this point is, do we start under or not? And if we don't start under here, I'd actually imagine this have a decent chance to push back up on this 4-hour. And then the dangerous thing would be is if we had a 4-hour that started back above here, and I'd imagine this would then push up from there. So that is one possible thing also as well I could very likely see. But ultimately, I think that 18K was the target for the Bears, and the Bulls managed to hold it very impressively. I was even saying a couple times in chat, I was very surprised that they were not able to push it down over the weekend, because I thought things looked pretty bad. So it's possible. And one thing I'll just show here for those still watching is this is a little bit of overselling. So let's not look at we can look at the 4-hour real quick. This was the daytime and we'll just look at, I don't want to show, the 4 is not going to show what I'm trying to show. So the day and the week will suffice. So we can see this. We start under, very close to it. This is very nice. Boom, we're above. We switch under, start under, resistance very close. We push up, then we push down. We look here, we start the day under here, we push up, we have some, whatever, around 11:30, we have that issue, we start the 2-hour under, whatever, they hold this area, we push down. So from the day time frame, this isn't really too much selling, but at the same time, it's quite a bit. They didn't need to push it anywhere past here, and there's some kind of issues that we might have. And essentially what we could see, and I would expect a lot of bullishness on Bitcoin, is if the week actually starts up here. If they could somehow manage to get the week to start up here, it won't be insane for Bitcoin, but it'll be pretty decent. And on this week, if then there is a day that goes from here, fights here, and then starts up here, we will almost surely come back to this 146.60 area. Now, it could get sold down. At this point, I think it's much more likely that we'll push all the way back up. And we can look at the week time frame to conceptualize this a little bit. We have this big sell down. So a weak start, or like a not strong start on this week candle. Not strong start because we're under both times, right? What we're looking for here is for this to start slightly above, and then look to take a position at the beginning of the week if we really expect a turnaround. Same kind of thing as we push up, right? We come back down. There's other stuff in this area too, but it is what it is. So this is a little bit oversold on the week, in my opinion. Not too much, but it's a little bit oversold from what it needed to be. I think anything around here would have been fine. So if we do get pushed up from the week time frame, one of the reasons why I expect that we can push up to this area is because, well, the week time frame is going to be right here. So if we want to come back even to this area or to this area, we could just look at these two right here, or we could try to come back to test. So I definitely see something like this being incredibly possible. I think it's a lot more likely, though, if we start the week here. And we can see in some of these other weeks, like we start above on the trend line there. This is a little close for what it is. I don't know what happened to it, but we did push up a little bit. The overall trend of it doesn't have to be super up. The point about this, like we can even see here, we start here. I don't remember this week specifically from the week time frame, but we do push up. And that's the idea. Not that, just that we start here is going to automatically treat this as the range. It's the idea that this gives it a chance to try to push up, and if it can manage on that week or on those day time frames within this next week to enter here, I believe it'll then push up, which could have an easy cascading effect back up. Now, I do believe most of the stuff could end ugly or end around here and then just reverse, do anything like that. But it's just the kind of general concept of it starting around there and being fairly strong and getting a little bit of support up, and then other things aligning with it in that sense. So I think that's pretty much it. I guess I can just go over the obvious. of what I was talking before. I think like strong spots, if we can push up. I mean, technically from a week time frame, this looks decent. I guess I think it's like the week this week. I think it goes to the 10th also. If we look at the day, it's a little bit clearer. Um, so essentially what I'd be looking for, if someone's like, say, okay, I don't want to mess with this right now. It's a little bit dangerous. Where do you think's a pretty decent idea that I could possibly get in? So I think this is a pretty decent spot where it is right here. Actually, was it there? I think it's right about here actually, because we'll see this trend line, so it'll be above this trend line also as well, and then we'll also be above this trend line that's just kept us down, and it's been a determining factor for so many things. So we'll see something. In general, this is a really huge resistance spot right here. So if we get support right around here, and not specifically right here, but pushing up from this area, a very like whoa area, because this is going to sketch out a lot of people if it can get back up here. And then the biggest area is here, and I believe that brings us into this range. And then if we can get back up into here, I think 100K looks very easy from that point. So those are kind of like longer term things to look out for. I don't think it's really a huge thing right now. And I think that is what it is so far. So, um, you know, that's just kind of is what it is. And we'll really see what happens here. It could get some strength on the 1 hour in some of these places. I think it's inherently a little dangerous to mess with it where it is. We have like a 2. Do we have anything reasonable around us? Okay, let me put this here. Looks like maybe a convergence is at the 1531, maybe something there. So we got a decent amount. So the 15 the 30s line up. Let me throw the top area, the 30s that line up with a 1. Okay. So it's not the best. One thing I do like is this is that first 15, and I do like, so we'll see if we do get like a 1 hour above here, especially coincide. I mean, that'll coincide with a 15, but if we get a 1 hour start right around here, I think that looks really good. I'd prefer to be above both of them if possible. Um, and then it looks like, because this is a 30, I would expect more so this to be our range. And then if we can get a 1 hour start somewhere, it just depends. Like, right? Like I could say it here, but if it's somewhere tomorrow, maybe somewhere around here, it probably won't take that long. Maybe it could. It depends what the market does. And if the market just looks good, obviously Bitcoin's going to push up. So it kind of gets rid of the need for me to go over a lot of this stuff. It just kind of is what it is. Um, but right for now, I mean, if you have the averages, you can just throw them on. You can kind of see it's not really that complicated. We don't have the 2s or the 4s above us or like a 12 above us or anything. So we have the 15, the 30s, and the 1s. That's pretty much what's right above us. So really it's starting a 1 hour above 19,320. We should push up from there at this range. It looks like the ceiling's about 19,426, but if we can get a 1 hour that starts above 19,475, then I mean, really at that point, and especially if the market looks decent, I mean, our target's the top of here, but I don't see why we couldn't just get back into it. But from there, it looks like the range is going to be about to 20,000. And then we're going to be looking for some start above here. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. It's not a specific time frame. It's just this. But if the market looks pretty decent at the same time those things line up, that's definitely something to note. So as of now, we'll see what happens with the market and with everything. I imagine where we currently are, it just looks better than it looks worse, unless someone wants to come in and push this down. And if someone does want to come in and push this down, that is incredibly fine. But no bull gives a F. Like, actually, no bull gives an F until we start under here. And really, at the same time, we need to start a 4 hour under here, not just a 2. We need to make sure it's much better if it's on a 4, because then it's much more likely to push, and we don't want an over an extension. And to be really bearish, we're really going to want a 4 hour to start under here. So even if we get a 2 hour or 4 that starts here, bears need to make sure they're able to get another 4 hour to start under here and not come back up, or it's going to look like a reversal with even more strength upwards. So those are just kind of some concerns and some issues. So I'm not really surprised whatsoever at all about this pushing up, because they kind of lost their chance. And I wouldn't be super surprised if it pushed down. I would be a little bit more. But I mean, I don't see why it can't push down. But there's no reason for it to super shoot down until we get under the 2 and the 4, which is right here, and specifically under this. So we'll see what happens when the market's open to get a better idea. But this is what I would be looking for. This is what I'm looking for in the short term. And it seems pretty straightforward to me. As long as you have the averages and you just look at the time frames, there shouldn't be any real issue here. So we'll see what happens. We'll see where stuff starts tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 9:15 Eastern for the market stream. Take care, y'all. Stay happy and healthy.